Milwaukee, 1991. A sad woman watches a newscast where she learns the sad news. 5 white police officers are accused of beating up a black undercover officer. The neighbor's boyfriend, named Jeffrey Dahmer, is washing his hands of blood. His kitchen is stained with bloody footprints, which alarms viewers. In the hallway, the guy is confronted by his neighbor, who again complains about the horrible smell. Jeff tells her that the smell is caused by spoiled meat. The woman claims to have seen discarded bones, which do not cause a strong odor. After a weighty argument, the guy justifies himself with the death of tropical fish. Apparently, the woman doesn't trust Jeff's dubious excuses, but lets him go. A black guy named Earl is wanted all over town. Jeff heads to a private club where he treats some strange guys. They remember that Jeff had treated them earlier and get to know him. After getting drunk, the guy starts dancing. He courts his companions, and invites Tracy home. It turns out that Jeff lives near the club, so they quickly make their way to the apartment. Tracy also notices a strange smell, which is explained by rotten meat. The guy notices a satanic Bible lying by the bed. They drink some beer diluted with detergent. The atmosphere seems very strange to Tracy, and he tries to leave sooner. Jeff gets sad, for he is always getting dumped. He asks the guy to stay, and spend time together. Tracy asks to turn on the air conditioner to get some fresh air, but his requests are ignored. Jeff shows the guy the aquarium where the fighting fish live. The animals are not allowed in the same room, but he likes to watch the fights. At one point, Tracy is handcuffed, which really scares the guy. He tries to get out, but Jeff threatens him with a knife. The guy calms Tracy down, and invites him into an air-conditioned room. Jeff explains that the handcuffs are put on to make a video. Now, the guys find themselves in a small room. They sit down on the bed, and are about to watch a movie. Every attempt to get out is doomed to fail. Jeff keeps threatening with a knife, and piling the guy on the bed. In the empty surroundings, the guys start watching the movie. Tracy tries to excite his companion, and get him to go into the other room to escape. The guys go into the other room, where Tracy begins to pose for a photo op. It turns out that Jeff has left his camera in the other room, from which he quickly returns. Tracy's dancing excites the hero, and he gets closer with each photo. Jeff offers to finish the movie and continue the photo shoot afterwards. The guys watch a horrible movie, which scares Tracy a lot. Jeff smokes a cigarette to calm down a bit. The guy admits that he watches this movie every day. The odd couple cuddle and talk softly in bed. Tracy's poor heart is pounding frantically, because of the fear of what is happening. Jeff admits that his heart would make a lovely dessert. With a few moves, Tracy fights off the unstable guy, and gets free. Tracy runs through the streets, extorting the help of the cops. On the highway, the guy meets patrolmen who agree to help. They approach the serial killer's apartment. Upon opening the door, the patrolmen discover that the handcuffs turned out to be nothing more than a homosexual game. The cops ask to present the keys to open the handcuffs. Jeff invites them inside the apartment, where he repeats the story of the rotten meat again. There are things scattered all over the apartment, and bloody footprints. One of the patrolmen enters the bedroom of the main event. Jeff is left in place to find out the perpetrator's actual actions. In the bedside table, the policeman finds the keys to the handcuffs, but with them several photographs. They depict the victims who have been missing in the city in recent weeks. The top photos were fresh, with footage of Tracy. The cops realize who Jeff is and arrest the guy for attempted murder of a man. Jeff is taken to the station to be investigated. The cops are followed by a neighbor who keeps complaining about the horrible smell. At night, Jeff's parents receive a phone call. The father goes to the police station to sort out the paperwork and the circumstances. The detective explains that Jeff was the one who tried to kill the black man. It turns out that the guy has been painfully through his parents' divorce. Something terrible things have followed. The man worries a lot, and tells Jeff's physical problems. As a child, he underwent a major surgery, which greatly affected his thinking. Mr. Dahmer tries to find out what happened last night, and comes into shock. According to the investigation, Jeff invited men to his home and then killed them. Tracy managed to get out in time to report what happened to law enforcement. Police officers arrived on the scene and found numerous items proving a series of murders. In Jeff's refrigerator, lurked a human head, bleeding. Several bags of human hearts were found in the freezer. Knives, saws, and axes were scattered throughout the apartment, used by the guy to kill his victims. In the bedroom, they found 5 human skulls, and lots of pictures on a Polaroid of dismembered bodies. In one of the drawers, patrol cops found an entire skeleton, and many bleached bones. The acid barrels hid 3 human torsos, in various stages of decomposition. We can assume that some of the victims, the guy just ate. The patrolmen go out for a few minutes to give Mr. Dahmer time to calm down. The man drinks some water and tries to regain consciousness. Some neighbors have been complaining about the horrible smells for about a year, but all messages have been ignored. Jeff's neighbor continues to watch the news reports, and is perplexed by what is happening outside. Police cars again surround the apartment buildings, and ask residents to evacuate. A short stay outside the compound will help the investigation, and keep people safe. The most important case is the identification of the bodies found by relatives or acquaintances of the victims. The authorities plan to look into the cause of the brutal murders. People are concerned about police inaction, because Jeff had a prior conviction for sexually abusing a teenager. The boy is taken to an interrogation room, where they offer to invite a lawyer. Jeff refuses help, and decides to tell the detectives the truth. We are transported to the hero's early childhood, 1966. Upon his return home, the boy is greeted by a crying sister, and a half-dead mother. It turns out that the mother has a severe overdose, as the woman is constantly trying to commit suicide. The constant domestic quarrels never gave peace to little Jeff, who needed the love and support of his parents. The boy asks his father to stay, but the man leaves for a few days. As a child, Jeff was very inquisitive, and loved to explore the world around him. Little Dahmer presents the teacher with tadpoles in a glass jar, which she gives to another student. This news greatly disappoints the boy, and a strange thought occurs to him. He follows the schoolboy, and sneaks into his house. Looking around, Dahmer takes the jar of maggots, and adds tadpoles. In the evening, the family inquires about the horrible smell coming from under the house. On the weekend, Mr. Dahmer, along with Jeff, check out the property. The boys find a dead possum whose skull is shattered. It seems to the parents that the boy has changed a lot since the surgery. The mother is slowly losing her mind, and the house is surrounded by nothing but fighting. Mr. Dahmer and his son began constantly searching for dead animals to learn anatomy and practice afterward. Together they dismembered animals, pulling out the real hearts. In later life, Dahmer becomes completely involved with living tissue, and works in the industrial field. In the evening, Jeff calls his father, where they discuss bringing the boy home. Mr. Dahmer takes the boy to town, where he sets his own living conditions. They have dinner every night with his grandmother, who tries to diversify Jeff's life. The boy starts working as a butcher, perfecting his food skills. Jeff goes to a clothing store, where he buys some t-shirts. He gets the idea to stay in the store until closing time. The guy hides in the fitting room, and waits for the lights to turn off. After the store closes, Jeff goes out into the main hall. He takes all the clothes off the mannequin, and takes it apart. First the arms, then the body, and the lower part of the mannequin. On the plastic dummy, the guy practices the sexual act of a man. Soon the grandmother finds the doll hidden under a blanket in Jeff's room. In our time, the dolls have become real guys. Perhaps, Jeff was used to making love to inanimate creatures, which provoked him to kill real men. One of Jeff's first noticed victims was a 14-year-old boy. They met outside a liquor store, where the maniac bought the teenager a beer. It was the alcohol that led the teenager to follow him to Jeff's apartment. The teenager's brother turns out to be Dahmer's previous victim. It was because of this guy that Jeff did a little time. The guy's family needed money, so he agreed to a little photo shoot. The guy insisted that the payment happen before the photo shoot. Jeff paid a small amount, and forced the teenager to drink a drink. The alcohol relaxed the boy, and the substances added to it made him fall asleep quickly. He acted on the old pattern, where the guys planned to watch a movie, but became murdered afterwards. Jeff with a screwdriver heads toward the teenager, but he is unable to think straight. The teen leaves the apartment and walks out into the common hallway. Neighbors follow him and call the police. Jeff, who has left the house, finds the boy in the crosswalk. He assures the police that the guy is of age, and is his boyfriend. The neighbors are surprised at the gullibility of the police, because the guy looks like a child. They inspect the premises and quietly walk away. They don't even care about the hidden corpse, because the policemen want to leave the smelly place faster. In the evening, the police station takes a call from Jeff's local neighbor. She assures her that the guy was not of age, and was definitely not a boyfriend. To all assumptions, the police officer responded with relief. For the police, the case was closed, because they found pictures of the guys in common in the house. 1959. Joyce, the wife of Mr. Dahmer, begins a trimester of pregnancy. The mother-to-be takes anti-anxiety drugs in huge quantities. They make the woman do strange things, and not own her thinking. Mr. Dahmer worries about the baby, because the chemicals will be able to harm it. The woman dreams of ending the pregnancy as soon as possible, because she wants to live her life in peace. Mr. Dahmer goes fishing with Jeff. The man teaches his son how to put a worm on a hook, which he quickly gets good at. Mr. Dahmer tries to find out the boy's preferences, and asks about his relationships with girls. But all questions, Jeff ignores. The guys clean the fish, and head home. Going up to his room, Jeff tries to relax with women's magazines. His relaxation is interrupted by loud screams from his parents coming from the kitchen. The boy's mother continues to freak out, and takes Dahmer's car to get to the UFO. The drugs make the woman think inadequately, and believe in aliens. Jeff returns to his room, and continues to rest. His genitals do not elicit any reactions to the woman's body, whereupon the story is interrupted. We are transported to the school hallway, where the upperclassmen are discussing Joyce's strange acquaintance. A hands-on biology lesson involves dissecting a dead organism. Demis, a roommate, turns out to be a vegetarian, and refuses to take part in the strange action. After class, the biology teacher praises the boy for his well-done practical work. Jeff confesses that he is very interested in anatomy. The boy asks to take one organism home for a little practice, and the biologist agrees. At recess, a classmate praises Jeff for addressing Demis. The boy invites him to come home to continue his hands-on work together, but the classmate refuses. A court hearing in a property division case goes in favor of Mrs. Dahmer. Under investigative law, she takes her youngest son for herself. Jeff returns home and learns the terrible news of his parents' divorce. The boy wants to stay to live with his father, and is convinced that the case has gone his way. Joyce packs up his belongings, and takes his son. It turns out that Mr. Dahmer has once again traded a woman for a mistress. Another attempt to talk to the mother is doomed to failure. The woman thinks the guy's actions are crazy, because cutting up animals is disgusting. Joyce says the boy will stay in town with his father. The son tries to explain that UFOs don't exist and are all fabrications of the woman's sick thoughts. But Joyce intends to be serious, and leaves town with her youngest son. At a beer stand, the boy buys a few bottles of beer, and returns home. After his mother leaves, Jeff goes a little crazy. He gets drunk, and tries to regain consciousness. The guy starts pumping his muscles, and strengthening his body. While jogging in the morning, Jeff notices a guy running by, and attacks him with a bat. They get to know each other, and decide to have a few beers. It turns out that it's been 3 months since his father came home, and the guy's life has become horrible and lonely. What happened earlier turns out to be just Jeff's imaginary thoughts, because the strange guy ran away right after the attack. Joyce spent several months in a psychiatric hospital, where she was treated for her strange thoughts. The therapy was successful, and the girl was left to help other victims. Joyce is engaged in weaving, because it is very soothing to the nervous system. The facility's psychologist thanks the woman for her cooperation and explains that what was going on earlier was just postpartum depression. The psychiatrist listened to Joyce and referred her for treatment for her mental problem. The female psychologist explains that she has found a job in another city, where she plans to settle with her family. She offers to take Joyce's place of honor, for the woman is doing a fine job of dealing with problems. Joyce agrees, for the job endows her with happiness. Preparing for exams, Jeff drinks beer in class. This forces the boy to see the school psychologist. The woman explains that graduation is important enough, and it's time to think about enrollment. The guy admits that he has quite an interesting hobby. The garage room is set up for a lab where Jeff works with downed animals. Mr. Dahmer thought the boy was deprived of a scientific mind, for he is interested in anatomy. The psychologist suggests he tie his life to science, but Jeff has trouble with math. The last option becomes physical education, but the activity turns out to be only a one-time hobby. On his way home from school, the guy meets Steven. It turns out the new acquaintance is headed to a concert by a popular lead singer. Jeff offers to forget the plans and head over to his house. Drink some beer, and smoke some weed to relax. Steven agrees, as the guy promises to take him to the concert, after a little time together. The guys go to Jeff's apartment, where they pump some muscles and drink beer. After a short time, Steven asks to be taken to a concert. Time quickly runs out, which causes the guy to give a warning about being late. Jeff asks him to relax, and have another can of beer. Steven refuses, and asks to be taken immediately to meet the lead singer. Jeff likes the insistence, and gently kisses his companion. The guy begins to cry, as people keep leaving him. Steven is shocked by what he has done, and tries to leave the building. Jeff becomes very angry, which causes him to throw a can at a new acquaintance. The glass shatters his head and he dies. The guy tries to bring Steven to consciousness, but death comes very quickly. Dahmer walks around the apartment and panics a lot. He decides to hide the body in a dark street, but carries the dead Steven to the lab. His body excites Jeff, and he finally realizes that he has absolutely no interest in girls. Dahmer has a few beers and heads to the dump. On his way out of town, the guy gets pulled over by the cops. They notice that the driver has been drinking heavily, but they don't arrest him. The patrolling cops wonder what is in the trash bags lying in the back seat. Jeff admits that his parents are recently divorced, and because of insomnia, he is constantly mowing the grass. He was on his way to the landfill to throw away the bags, but he is brought home. The trash bags turn out to contain bones, and parts of poor Steven's body. Dahmer flushes the human blood down the toilet, and smashes the bones with a hammer in the middle of the room. At sunrise, he goes to the yard to throw out the resulting ashes. 1991. At the site of construction of a new house, small pieces of bones are found. The remains confirm the story of the first victim. At the time of the murder, the guy panicked and decided to crush the human bones. Crushing them into powder didn't work, because they were wet inside. Then, the guy decided to put them in the oven to dry and try to crush them again. Jeff scattered the remains all over the yard, for he felt lonely. The point is to have the pieces of a person be scattered around. He believes that he was born with these peculiarities, because the events causing the horrible consequences did not happen. When talking to the patrol therapist, it was revealed that Jeff was aroused at the sight of human organs. The guy liked their shine, sensitivity, and tenderness. Men love shiny pictures, because it affects the sexual aspect. The 9-year break was very hard for Jeff, but he was trying to be a good boy. 1978. Graduates take a picture for the school yearbook. On a certain page, the high schoolers find Jeff's face that wasn't supposed to be in it. At home, the boy looks at the yearbook. Mr. Darrell's new woman, named Chief, turns out to be a tough, attractive girl. Together with the man, they go back to visit Jeff, and stay living together. When they arrive home, the family notices a terrible mess, and lots of booze. Mr. Dahmer learns that Joyce left months ago. There are a lot of empty booze bottles at home, which forces Darrell to have a serious conversation. Jeff has an overly sweet cup of coffee, and has a little talk with his new parents. He explains that he is a loser, which sets him apart from other kids. The boy tries to talk about sins he has committed, and fantasies, but holds back. Mr. Dahmer offers to pay for his first semester at a good university, to which the boy graciously agrees. Jeff continues to drink heavily, and to skip classes. One afternoon, the dean's office calls Mr. Darrell in for a serious talk. The dean announces that the boy has a minimum grade point average in his subjects, and is skipping classes. His father tries to convince the dean that Jeff will correct his grades, but the boy has already been expelled. Mr. Dahmer quickly walks away, not letting his son come to his senses. A year later, Mr. Dahmer and his girlfriend Chief meet the boy from the service. He enjoys practicing medicine and saving wounded people. He plans to stay on as an instructor at the front, which makes his parents very happy. Jeff is invited to the table, where the guy brags about his successes. It turns out that while in the service, Jeff was stealing drugs, turning them into killer drugs. He killed a fellow student and went back to his murderous business. His love of dead male bodies only grew, and he continued to abuse his victims. The guy announces that he is leaving next week to serve in North Germany. 1981. Jeff is kicked out of the army and returns home. Mr. Dahmer announces that the guy is to find a normal job, and live in an apartment with his grandmother. The young hero returns to his room, where his grandmother is waiting for him. They look at baby pictures of Mr. Dahmer, and have a nice chat about family matters. Grandma says that Dahmer was always a good boy, and got ribbons for his behavior. It turns out that Jeff never got the ribbons he deserved, because his life has been awful. Grandma repeats that it's time for the boy to go back to church to make up for his sins. Jeff gets a job as a butcher, in a small restaurant. An experienced chef teaches the guy meat skills, and hires him for a minimum wage job. Viewers are taken back to an old episode where Grandma finds a mannequin under a blanket. After seeing it, the grandmother throws it away, much to the grandson's anger. She asks to go to church again, because his reactions are abnormal. Jeff scatters the kitchen utensils, and retires to his room. In the evening, he apologizes to his grandmother, which calms the old woman down a bit. They go to a doll show, where the boy gets drunk again. At the exhibition, he sees a murdered team member, after which the guy is detained. After the incident, the butcher fires the guy and sends him looking for a new job. Jeff gives up drinking, and gets a job as a donor at a treatment facility. The grandmother is amazed at the boy's positive changes, but not all events turn out well. The collected blood, the guy hides in his bedroom, where he drinks the liquid at night. In 1987, Jeff starts going to the local homosexual club. There, the guy meets Charles, with whom they have a few drinks. The guys buy admission to a nightclub where they spend a great night. Jeff uses his skills with a mannequin to relax Charles. In the morning, the new acquaintance quickly escapes, for he is in a hurry to get to work. To avoid feeling left out, Jeff starts going to the club every night. At night, he finds new victims to whom he slips a powder into alcoholic beverages and kills them. These acts are noticed by the security guard, who calls the police. He tells them that the previous guy could not be brought to his senses, but the new victim is saved. Jeff is added to the blacklist, after which the guy is barred from entering the hotel. Dahmer is fired again, and his life turns into a terrible apathy. His grandmother calls the guy to church to regain some consciousness. She realizes that the poor grandson is constantly being abandoned, so she offers to say goodbye to God. Jeff refuses the offer. He hasn't been interested in going to church for a long time. The guy goes to the club again, where he meets a new victim. The acquaintances arrive at a motel, where they are going to have a drink. The guy slips the mixture into a Coke, but gets confused, and gives the regular drink away. It turns out that Jeff drinks some poisoned alcohol and then tries to regain consciousness quickly. He repeats the trick with the drink again, and gives it to his companion. In the morning, Jeff realizes that he has killed a new acquaintance. He tries to bring him to consciousness, but his heart is no longer beating. The guy puts the body of the murdered acquaintance in a suitcase, and goes back to his grandmother. In the evening, he takes out his head, and gently kisses it on the lips. Afterwards, the guy leaves the head in the box.